Hello. My name's Emily. And this is my story. It's not exactly a fairy tale. There's no glittering ball gown, no pumpkin carriage, and certainly no prince who immediately knows he's in love with me. Instead, there's me, 24 years old, perpetually late, owner of exactly 3 mismatched mugs, and currently sitting in my kitchen wearing one sock because the other one mysteriously vanished in the laundry. If you're imagining a glamorous heroine with perfect hair, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. My hair looks like it's been styled by a very confused pigeon, and my eyeliner is still smudged from last night because I forgot to take it off before bed. But maybe that's the point. This is real life. And real life is messy, awkward, and sometimes unexpectedly hilarious. This morning started like most of my mornings, with my alarm clock screaming at me like a banshee. I rolled over, groaned, and promised myself I'd get up in just 5 more minutes. Of course, those 5 minutes became 20, and by the time I stumbled into the kitchen, my phone was buzzing with a text from my best friend, Chloe. Chloe's message read, "Remember, coffee at 9. Don't be late. This is important." When Chloe says something is important, it could mean anything. From "I found the perfect lipstick shade for you" to "we need to plan our escape in case the zombie apocalypse happens tomorrow." So, naturally, I had no idea what she meant. I threw on jeans, grabbed the nearest sweater, which I later realized was on inside out, and ran out the door. The universe, of course, decided to punish me for my tardiness by making me miss the bus by approximately 3 seconds. I stood there, panting, as the driver looked me in the eyes and slowly, painfully slowly, drove away. By the time I finally made it to the cafe, Chloe was sitting at our usual corner table, sipping her oat milk latte with the smug satisfaction of someone who's been on time for at least a decade. "Wow," she said as I sat down. "You look alive." "That's generous," I muttered, grabbing my coffee. "So what's the emergency?" She leaned in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You remember my cousin's wedding next month?" I nodded. Chloe's cousin, Melissa, was getting married in a lavish ceremony that sounded like it had been plucked straight out of a Pinterest board. I'd been invited as Chloe's plus one, partly because we were inseparable, and partly because Chloe knew I'd never say no to free champagne. "Well," Chloe continued, "guess who's going to be the best man?" I frowned. Your cousin's fiancé's best friend." She grinned. "Close. His name is Daniel. He's tall, British, and," she wiggled her eyebrows, "single." I groaned. "Chloe, please don't turn this into some matchmaking mission." "Oh, come on. You've been single for almost 2 years. You need to at least consider the possibility of meeting someone." I took a sip of coffee, trying to ignore the heat rising to my cheeks. The truth was, I had considered it. I'd considered it a lot. But dating felt like one of those high-risk sports you only see on TV, thrilling in theory, terrifying in practice. We spent the rest of the morning gossiping about the wedding guest list and debating whether the cake should have 3 tiers or 5. Chloe was firmly in the 5-tier camp. I didn't think much more about Daniel. Until that evening, when I got a text from an unknown number. "Hi. This is Daniel. Chloe gave me your number. I hear well be less risk of me running you over with a shopping cart." Fair point. Friday. And just like that, my week had a new event circled in metaphorical red ink. Friday, coffee with the mysterious British best man. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop wondering what he'd be like in person. Would he be charming? Arrogant? Quiet? Would he like my awkward humor? Or would I end up making terrible puns that he'd politely laugh at out of pity? I told myself not to overthink it. It was just coffee. Just one meeting. But deep down, I had a feeling that this Friday might be the start of something I wasn't quite ready for. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what I needed. Friday arrived faster than I expected, which was unfair because I had planned to spend at least 3 days mentally preparing for my coffee with Daniel. Instead, it felt like I blinked on Monday and suddenly woke up in a mild panic on Friday morning. I stood in front of my closet, staring at my clothes as if they were about to give me life advice. "Be yourself," Chloe had said over the phone the night before, which was unhelpful because myself was currently debating whether wearing a sweater with coffee stains from last week counted as quirky or just gross. In the end, I chose a simple navy dress and a jacket, something that said, "I made an effort but not too much effort," which was exactly the balance I wanted. I arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early, which is unusual for me and probably confused the universe. I was halfway through convincing myself to relax when the door opened and in walked Daniel. Let me clarify, he didn't just walk in, he strode in like the kind of man who knows he's about to ruin your carefully balanced emotional defenses. Tall, sharp jawline, messy dark hair that somehow looked intentional, and yes, British accent confirmed within seconds. "Emily?" he asked, smiling in a way that made my brain momentarily forget how to form words. "Hi," I managed. "You must be Daniel. Unless this is some elaborate prank Chloe set up." "If it is," he said, taking a seat across from me, "then she's very good at it." He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, no milk, which told me one of two things. Either he was a serious coffee drinker, or he had something to prove. We started with safe topics, how long he'd be in town, his job in London, the wedding plans, but within 15 minutes we were talking about everything from terrible childhood haircuts to our mutual hatred of pineapple on pizza. He was funny, in a dry, understated way, and I found myself laughing more than I expected. At one point, he leaned forward and said, "So, Chloe tells me you're not exactly a fan of matchmaking." "That's one way to put it," I replied. "I think she believes she's starring in some romantic comedy where she gets to play Cupid." "And you're resisting the plot," he said with a smirk. "I'm resisting the chaos," I corrected, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true anymore. We ended up talking for nearly 2 hours, and when the conversation finally slowed, he glanced at his watch and said, "I have to go meet the groom, but would you like to do this again?" My stomach did a little somersault. "Yeah," I said before I could overthink it. "I would." He smiled, stood up, and as he left, he lightly touched my shoulder, just a small, casual gesture, but it sent an unexpected warmth through me. The rest of the day, I floated through my errands with an unshakable sense of anticipation. I didn't want to admit it, but I was already looking forward to seeing him again. That night, Chloe called, clearly fishing for details. "So?" she asked. "Was he as dreamy as I promised?" "He was fine," I said, attempting nonchalance. "Fine?" she gasped. "Emily, that's the tone you use when you're secretly in love. I've met him once." "That's how it starts," she declared. As I hung up, I found myself smiling. I told myself it was just a casual thing, just coffee with a friend of a friend. But deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was the first step into something I couldn't predict. The week after my coffee with Daniel felt like one long, slightly ridiculous daydream. I caught myself smiling at random moments, which is not ideal when you're in the middle of a grocery store comparing prices on toilet paper. I kept replaying little pieces of our conversation. His sarcastic jokes, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the subtle pause before he asked if we could meet again. By Thursday, we'd exchanged a steady stream of texts. They weren't over-the-top romantic, just casual back and forth about work, travel, and the absurd number of different milk options in modern coffee shops. But each time my phone buzzed, I felt that ridiculous little rush, like I was 16 again and the cute boy in school had just passed me a note. On Friday, he suggested dinner. Not coffee, not a casual drink, dinner. My initial reaction was panic. Dinner meant real conversation for an extended period of time. Dinner meant possible moments of awkward silence. Dinner meant potential hand-holding territory. I spent an hour pacing my apartment before finally texting back sure. Chloe, of course, was delighted. She insisted on helping me choose an outfit, which meant she arrived at my place armed with half a wardrobe and the determination of a personal stylist preparing someone for the red carpet. We settled on a soft burgundy dress and ankle boots, which made me feel just the right mix of confident and approachable. Daniel picked me up right on time, which was almost suspicious. He drove a small, slightly beat-up car, which I liked. It made him seem less intimidating, more real. We went to a cozy Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street, the kind of place where the lighting is soft and the air smells like garlic and baked bread. The conversation flowed easily again, though this time there was an undercurrent I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was the way he kept leaning in when I spoke, or the way his gaze lingered a second too long, like he was memorizing the details of my face. Halfway through dessert, tiramisu, which we shared even though I pretended to be reluctant, he asked, "What's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?" I thought for a moment, then laughed. Honestly, probably agreeing to have dinner with someone I've only met once. He smiled, that slow, knowing smile that made my stomach twist. Then I hope I make it worth the risk. After dinner, he drove me home, and when we reached my building, there was that brief, cliché moment. The pause, the shared look, the question hanging in the air. He didn't kiss me, though. Instead, he said softly, "I'll see you soon," and waited until I was safely inside before driving away. I told myself I was fine with that it was good to take things slow. But as I stood by the window watching his car disappear down the street, I realized I was already hoping soon meant tomorrow.